make sure you prioritize and keep the main thing, and understand that football is something that you do and it's not necessarily who you are.
Today's episode of First Down features Danny Schaechter, the offense coordinator at Libertyville High School. For more content like this, be sure to like and subscribe.
Thanks for having me, Justin. Really appreciate it.
Coach Schaechter is the offensive coordinator at Libertyville High School, which is up in the suburbs of Chicago. Can you just share with the audience a little bit about your background and how you've ultimately gotten involved in your current role?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and thanks for asking me. So, it all starts really in the backyard playing football, right? And just loving the game. After I graduated from high school, I knew my football playing days were over. I'm like 5'5". If I got, some solid shoes on, I stretch out. And I went to Illinois State University. And I love football, so I wanted that to be part of my life. And I emailed the head coach of Denver Johnson saying if there was anything I could do for the program. And he helped hook me up with an equipment manager job. So my first 3 years at Illinois State, I was washing jock straps, literally, handing out equipment, all that stuff, just trying to be close to the game. I'd be as close to the quarterback coach, Justin Fuente, and the receiver coach, Brad Cornelson, just to try and learn, absorb what they're doing, watch their drills. And then after a few years of doing that, I asked if I could, learn more football, be more part of the staff instead of being an equipment manager. And they had me become an undergraduate student assistant coach. So basically like a graduate assistant, but I didn't get any school or anything paid for. And right there, great introduction to learning that I didn't know anything about football. So all of you young guys who you think you know ball, you don't. There's so much to learn, and checking your ego at the door is definitely one of the biggest things that you can do. Saying, you know what, I can learn from these old dudes. I might not agree with them, but I can still learn with them. And if I don't agree with them, then I need to learn why I think I'm right and why I think that they're wrong. But I was just hearing football. It was going so fast. It was like going into a calculus class, and all I knew was how to add and subtract. So it was a great intro to football right there with a bunch of great coaches. I after graduating, I taught English at Jack Brett High School, and I coached high school football for a year out there. And then I got a job as a running backs coach at Northeastern Oklahoma A&M Junior College in Miami, Oklahoma. Once a Norseman, always a Norseman. Crazy wild place where Walmart was like the coolest thing that you could do in that town. After that, I was a graduate assistant at a Division II school in Arkansas, Arkansas Tech University, Wonder Boys. Had an awesome learning experience there, but one of the things I learned there is I did not enjoy recruiting, which meant I could not be a college football coach because that's probably the most important thing that you got going for yourself if you want to be at that level. So, know what, once again, another piece of advice would be, have an idea of what level you want to coach. If you really want to be in the big time, then you better be willing to put in tons of hours. And then, am I trying to go to the NFL? Am I trying to, go to college? And seeing the differences in what you need right there. And if you want to go coach college football, then go ahead and try and learn to be a great recruiter. After that, I was like, hey, it's time to coach high school football. I love high school football. I love the impact that I'm allowed to have on the young men that I get to coach. I love teaching in high school setting. I want to have as big of an impact on the young men and women that I am surrounded by. I love working with younger people. They're way more fun to work with than adults for the most part, because at least they have an excuse as to why they do some of the knucklehead things that they do. Whereas adults, like, what's our reason for not living up to the expectations and standards that we set for others? So I was down in Florida at Leesburg High School. That's where I met the head coach Randy Trivers, and then after working with him working there for 3 years, that's when I went up with him to Gonzaga College High School in Washington D.C. And I was there for 8 seasons as the offense coordinator. And I was the OC at Libertyville, at Arkansas Tech, receiver coach. And so been a part of the offensive side, obviously, the whole entire way. So it's really important. Offensive guys don't get locked into only knowing offense. Make sure that you're studying the other side of the ball. Know their rules, so that way you can know how to force them to break their rules. and affect them with motions, formations, as well as scheme. Um, so at Gonzaga, had a great time there. Coached in the craziest game of my life in 2018, where we won a game, the championship game on a Hail Mary. And but around the COVID time is when I really started feeling that, hey, it's time for me to get back home to my family. So my wife and I were like, you know what, let's do it. Let's go back to Chicago. I met her in Florida, so I suckered her up in moving from Florida to DC, and now I got her in the cold weather. It's like -7 here right now, and so we came here and moved to Libertyville over a year and a half ago, and it has been fantastic. I get a lot more family time due to my football situation, and then I have my parents here. Nicole, my wife, her family moved from Tampa. Her parents moved from Tampa up here nearby, about 15 minutes away. So now I've suckered her whole entire family to moving to moving up here. So lots of great family time right here, and to me, that's probably the most important thing when it comes to coaching. I love football, but you also only get one shot with your family as well. So making sure to balance your work and your life, and really putting the most important on what matters the most. And I had to do a lot of good soul searching at my time at Gonzaga, and really be like, you know what, I married this person for a reason. I have children of my own. They have to be first and foremost in the decisions that I make. So that kind of wraps up to me getting here now. So I coach football. I'm also the head girls badminton coach. So that's a lot of fun. I'm also the strength conditioning coordinator for our school.
Very cool. And I think the biggest takeaway that I got from your story, coach, was probably just having a vision and knowing where you want to go. Because, I think so many young guys will get caught up in, oh, I need to go pro, like to the pros, or I need to go to a large college. But, there's nothing wrong with just having high school as your end goal. Because like you were saying, having that work life balance and being able to spend family time is very important for many people. So I really appreciate you sharing that. So beyond what we just talked about, what advice specifically would you give to maybe somebody who's just getting started, who's trying to like form what their vision is in their career?
Yeah, there's a lot of things to be done. So nothing is going to replace the work that is required. And that's a lot of reading. That's a lot of watching videos. That's using social media to your advantage and trying to network and connect with coaches. Offer, hey, can I buy you a coffee? I'll send you a $5 Venmo or a $10 Venmo so you can get yourself a Starbucks or whatever, because people's time is valuable. So the networking, connecting with people to try and just ask questions and learn is huge. But outside of the generalities, I think there are a few things that younger coaches are going to have to be learning and better about than maybe some older coaches are. So something that anybody needs that has to be worth it, worth anything as a football coach, is you do have to have a good understanding of scheme. So not just learning plays, but trying to learn a system. So that could be a system as a young coach that you're already involved in. Go do a deep dive, right? If you're in an air raid offense, man, go back to the originals and go watch all the videos and tapes and clinics and all that stuff that's available, and dive deep into that system. Because when you learn a system, then you're able to learn the answers that the opponent is going to have, and that's going to help you in game, right? Because hey, if I just have a collection of plays, I don't have a jumping off point. Like if play A doesn't work, then what's my backup plan? If it's just a collection of plays, you just got a hodgepodge and it doesn't work well together. Whereas if when teams have a system, it could be double wing, right? It could be air raid, flex bone, West Coast, whatever it is. Those things are all built and integrated on top of each other, where the answers are kind of built in already. So learning one system, doing a very deep dive and learning that, and then starting to branch off once you've spent some time in that. I think that's really important. Outside of learning your side of the ball, making sure to learn scheme on the other side of the ball is also very important. The other things, two things that I think young coaches are going to need to know a lot better than some of us old guys is going to be drill design. So a lot of coaches do things that the way that they've always been done. Lots of cone drills, running around bags. Basically, it's ballet with helmets and shoulder pads on, right? Like I know exactly the thing that I need to do, and then as a coach, like I go do it, and the coach is like, "Yeah, good job," right? But does that actually transfer to the game? So I would recommend looking at Rob Gray. He's a guy that does the Perception Action podcast. He's a teacher at Arizona State. He's written a couple of books. I have one right here, actually. Um, how we move. I know it's hard to see because I got it blurred. But it's about ecological dynamics, the constraints-led approach, basically helping athletes find answers instead of just telling them what the answer to the test is. Because in the game of football, it's chaos once the ball is snapped. So they don't have the answer really before the play. They have to figure it out as it goes. And it's up to us as coaches in practice to put them in situations so that they can find different strategies, different techniques in order to solve whatever problem they need to solve, right? So if I'm running like a curl route, all right, well, depending on where the defensive back is, my curl route might be different. But if all I ever did was a curl route in routes on air, I'm not setting my player up for success because he just knows how to run a curl really well against the air. Well, anybody can be good at that. I could go get my six soon to be 7-year-old son and have him go run a curl route on air. But now when you put an opponent in there and that opponent's kind of in the way of that where that landmark is for the curl, well, how do you move that guy? Well, you can only do that when a coach, and player is in an environment that allows that learning, right? So if practice looks perfect, then it's just ballet, it's just choreographed, and that's not going to translate to the field. Practice should be messy, and that's really where the learning goes on. So kind of getting back a little bit to like free play, kind of setting up games, letting guys learn how to move. And then outside of drill design, the thing that goes hand in hand is going to be learning biomechanics. So how we actually move as people. I think those are two things that are going to really differentiate the future coaches that are going to be coming up. Because expectations are just going to be higher on your knowledge. Knowing scheme, being a scheme guy is not going to be good enough, right? It's going to be how can I get my guys to do the scheme in the chaos of the game? So that's drill design. And then how can I teach them to move better in those environments? And that's biomechanics. So learning how we move, right? So learning things about sprinting. That would be a great place to start. I got to give a shout out to Tony Holler and Feed the Cats and the Track Football Consortium because that's a group that is really putting movement, and especially in terms of sprinting, at the forefront of all athletics. There's never been a coach that said, you know what, that guy's too fast. I don't want him on my team, right? So, being able to learn to move better, and then the idea of like game speed, which would be Tony Villani at XP Sport, right? Where now I've gotten a guy to be about as fast as he can be. How can he use that in a game? Because I can't go at 20 miles an hour and make a 90-degree cut. Most people can't do that. Maybe like Tyreek Hill can. I don't know. But most guys are going to play the game between 14 to 16 miles an hour. So, hey, I need to be able to make guys faster, and I need to teach them how to use and control that speed so that way they can move and change direction. So the reason why biomechanics becomes important is so that you're not teaching against the human body. A great example is the false step. A lot of receiver coaches are going to teach, not to, pick your foot up and put it down and go. When that's really like a plyo step And that's just your body adjusting itself so it can get into a better way of accelerating. It goes with the offensive line as well. Don't step in the bucket. Don't step behind yourself and things like that. Gain ground. Things like that. Where if you know biomechanically, well, some of what we've been teaching against was actually the right way, right? If you see like 90 to 98% of humans naturally doing something, it's probably because the body actually wants to do that thing. That's why so many guys false step, right? Because our body is adjusting to drop our shin so that way we can go and accelerate. To kind of sum it up, got to know scheme. And when I say scheme, learn a system and then start learning about, the minutia of the plays, right? The actual, hey, this is counter. These are all the variations that you can do. And this is what we're going to do to protect counter, just as an example, right? Drill design. So learning ecological dynamics, fancy word of basically, helping with self-guided discovery. And then the third thing would be, biomechanics, learning how the human body actually works. So that way you can put your players into advantageous body positions, and then you can help them unlock their athleticism and let them play.
All great points right there. Any last words, Coach, that you want to share with the audience today?
If you love the game of football, then the level doesn't matter. I love football, and my heart has, like, I get the adrenaline, the heart's pounding, the excited butterflies in the belly. I got them when I was playing. I got them when I was coaching college football. I get them when I'm coaching high school football. Shoot, when I had to go coach my son's, a 5-year-old kindergarten basketball team for a few weeks, my heart was pumping. So if you love the game, if you love the sport, the level, the logo, they don't matter. The game is the game. And it's really all about the people that you're around, the relationships that you're able to build with the coaches, with the players, with the adults that surround the program, all the boosters, supporters, and all of that. That's what it's really about. So, hey, if your aspirations are NFL, go attack it, right? If your aspirations are college, great, go get it. But don't feel some kind of way if you don't end up in the NFL, because a lot of those guys probably had dads that were NFL coaches, right? Don't be super mad that you don't get a coach college because, like me, you didn't get play in college football, right? Or you don't have the pedigree, or you don't have that connection, or you don't want to go recruiting. Don't feel bad about it, because it's all about the game. It's all about bringing your best self to make others better. And your heart's going to be pumping. You're going to be excited on game days, and you're going to love going out to the practice field. And then keep in mind that the game of football doesn't love you back like your family does. So make sure you prioritize and keep the main thing, and understand that football is something that you do, and it's not necessarily who you are. And I think if you can keep those things in mind, you're going to be happier yourself. You're going to help people around you be happier and better. And you're just going to, it's going to be a much better life for yourself.
Coach, thank you very much for sharing today. Really appreciate you being on the podcast. And, best of luck this off season.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.